Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Here to bring in part 27 of What If Sonic and his friends were in Remnant. Link down description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 52, Exacerbation. Exacerbation. Weiss and RWBY were at the lead of the group, while Penny remained in the rear with Whitley and Willow in the middle, as they tried to make their way through the cold and metal hallways of the base they were trying to escape from. So far, they hadn't encountered any resistance, but that could change at any moment. Weiss and Penny were at the ready to attack at any given moment, though RWBY was another story. Her body shook as she tried to keep herself firm, like she was warring against herself. Come on, don't keel over, she tried to tell herself. Penny, Weiss, and her family are depending on you. You need to be strong. Whitley and Willow, however, made no effort to hide their fear and fatigue. The physical and emotional trauma of what they just endured was catching up with them, Willow especially as she seemed to be hyperventilating and almost fell over, but Whitley caught her. Mom, I can't move, I can't. She looked like she was about to have an anxiety attack, which everyone else noticed. Weiss looked in pity as she tried to find some place they could rest and address her mother. She noticed an open doorway a bit further down the hall and went over to scout ahead. She saw that it looked like an empty laboratory or workshop where tools could be repaired. It would suffice for now. Penny, any sign of activity? She asked the android girl. Negative, she confirmed. Then we can rest in here for a few minutes. Come on. Weiss gestured for everyone to follow her as RWBY helped Whitley to keep his mother from falling over as they helped escort her to the laboratory, while Penny stood at the doorway. I'll keep on guard, as well as try to establish communications with our allies. Penny said. All right. Weiss nodded as Willow was set down to sit and rest on the workshop table as she, RWBY, and Whitley went to address her. Mother, look at me. Weiss tried to tell her, but Willow's breathing was still erratic, and it looked like she might even faint. Mom. Weiss gently held both her hands, which seemed to get Willow's attention as she looked to her daughter, who tried to look as gently as she could. I need you to breathe. Take a deep breath. Inhale. She took deep breath of her own for emphasis. She had seen Amy do something similar before at Beacon and decided to use it to help her mother. Willow tried to follow her youngest daughter's lead and inhale herself, though it was rather shaky. Good, now exhale. She instructed, prompting Willow to let out a deep breath. Now inhale. They did it together this time with Willow's breath being a bit more stable, but still shaken. And exhale. She let her breath out, with Willow doing the same. Again, inhale, they both took a deep breath, which was smoother than before. And exhale. With that third exhale, Willow seemed to calm down a bit, though she was still clearly afraid. It looked like her anxiety attack had passed at least. Are you all right? Better, Willow said before looking ashamed. I'm sorry, Weiss. It's okay. You're scared. We all are. Weiss reached for her brother's hand and squeezed it gently, causing him to look at her as she tried to smile, hoping to silently assure him as well as she knew he was scared too. He smiled with a small nod of his own. I think, we can take a few minutes to rest. Okay, Whitley nodded. Stay here for a second. RWBY, can we talk? She looked to her partner and leader, gesturing to the far side of the room to speak privately. Sure, they walked away, leaving Whitley to sit next to his mother as they held each other by their arms, hoping to find some comfort and solace with each other. Once the two were as private with each other as they could be, RWBY tried to speak. Weiss, RWBY was however interrupted as Weiss leapt at her, wrapping her arms around her partner, much to her surprise. I've missed you so much. She heard Weiss' voice crack, like she was crying. And she was indeed crying. The red-clad girl cried herself as she hugged her partner back. I've missed you too, Weiss. So much has happened. I don't even know. It's okay. We'll work through it later, Weiss said as they continued to hold one another. I found Crescent Rose, RWBY said, causing Weiss to pull away and look to her partner, only to gasp as she saw her already sobbing. Metal Sonic has it, that caused Weiss to gasp even more. He's had it, since Beacon. Used it, to kill people. He butchered it, tore it apart, made it into something else. My weapon, something I made to protect people, and he used it to hurt them. She hugged Weiss tightly, sobbing almost uncontrollably as she buried her face into her shoulder. Weiss was at a loss for words. She knew just how precious Crescent Rose was to her and was affected by its loss since Eggman's attack on Beacon. Only for the Mad Doctor's greatest and most dangerous creation to take it and use it as its own weapon. The thought made her sick to her stomach and made her loathe Eggman even more. In a way, she understood what RWBY was feeling, because her own family name, which once inspired hope, had been corrupted into something that people genuinely hate and fear thanks to her own father. Penny also happened to hear what RWBY said, and she felt the same way. Metal Sonic was the machine that had nearly destroyed her at Beacon, and it was with Crescent Rose too. She had this feeling though it wasn't acting the way it did under Eggman's orders, but by its own choice. One thing was certain, though. One way or another, she would reclaim Crescent Rose back for her friend. Just then a flash of orange appeared behind them all, causing them all to look towards the back wall of the workshop, where they saw an orange portal appear. Instinctively, the group backed away as they saw someone hover out of the portal just before it closed. The figure in question was male and appeared to be an anthropomorphic echidna with white and gray fur, with dreadlocks hanging around the back of his head. Though 3 around his face were pointing upwards, the 2 on the side were stripped while his eyes glowed a vibrant purple, matching the aura that hung around his body as he continued to hover. His attire was a vibrant dark purple sleeveless suit and shoes, with separated sleeves at his arms. He had yellow arm braces and bracelets on his arms, cuffs on his legs, and a belt, as well as what appeared to be a bright glowing jagged line on his chest that looked similar to an M with a glowing triangle over it. He also had a pair of spiked gloves, with the spikes appearing to be made of stone, and glowing purple circles on his palms. Unbeknownst to all of them, this was Subject I, also known as Imperator X, former leader of the Nocturnus clan. Heavily modified and programmed by Dr. Starline. What is that? Whitley stuttered as Willow held him close. It looks like, Knuckles, RWBY muttered in shock with Weiss being the first to narrow his eyes at him. Penny performed a quick scan with her eyes. It is a cyborg. Approximately 68.79% of his body is mechanical, while his organic material has been enhanced with steroidal cocktails. He also appears to have dust inside him. What? Weiss exclaimed with her family and partner being just as shocked. Specifically, earth and gravity dust and, oh no, Penny's face would have gone pale if it could. Penny. RWBY looked to her nervously. His core unit, it's powered by plasma dust. Penny revealed. The same type of artificial hybrid dust my father, Tails, and I produced during our time in Atlas. The same type of power source I have. Weiss glared. That would mean this Starline has been spying on us for some time. Ix lifted his right palm as a black and purple sphere appeared in the middle of it, which it quickly pulsated. Everyone, brace yourselves. Penny's warning came too late as the sphere exploded with a wave of pure gravitational force tore up the entire workshop. Weiss and even Willow instinctively pulled up a pair of glyphs to protect themselves, as well as RWBY and Whitley respectively, while Penny crossed her arms together. But the sheer force of the blast had sent them all crashing through the wall and back into the main hallway. RWBY and Weiss both groaned as they tried to pull themselves up, with Penny already recovering. They both saw Whitley and Willow lying flat on the floor, their own auras flickering, but they were very much conscious and in great physical pain. They looked to see Ix, now on the ground, step closer towards them with his glowing purple eyes. It appears we have no choice but to fight, Penny declared as she produced floating array from her body. It would seem so. Weiss used a glyph to summon a replica of the Arma Giga's sword and took it in her hand. You're no Murtanaster, but you'll have to do. Penny noticed RWBY had no weapon of her own yet still looked determined to fight. RWBY. She sent one of her own swords towards her, which RWBY caught in her hands. Do not stray too far. My blades can only work within 100-meter radius of myself. Got it. RWBY held the blade tightly as the 3 of them faced Ix, who brought his fists together to create a dark purple spark upon impact. Meanwhile, within a cargo hold of the Aerofell base, Clover found himself in a heated duel against Bianca, Kingfisher colliding and parrying against the relentless slashes of cause and effect with Bianca appearing to have the edge in close combat. When their weapons locked, Clover kicked at her feet to trip her up as he flipped away while also flicking his clover-shaped pendant. He landed and flung out the fishing rod at Bianca before she got up, but she simply smirked as she ducked her head and allowed the fishing line to pass over her and strike Robin at her head from behind as she attempted to aim her crossbow at Bianca. This shocked Clover quite a bit and left him open for Bianca to attack from behind, falling into a green portal just below her and reappearing directly behind Clover to slash at his back. Harriet zoomed forward towards an egg pawn and pounded it to smithereens with a punch before jumping backwards to avoid a swing from an egg hammer's titular weapon. She tried to dash at it, striking at it all over its body with her intense speeds and rapid punches, but she only managed a few dents before jumping backwards. When the egg hammer tried to slam its hammer down onto her, she ran to the nearest wall and ran up, heading towards the ceiling to try and gain enough momentum and deal more damage. Only for a green portal to open up behind her as a thorny whip was extended through to bind and ensnare Harriet before pulling her into said portal, with Ivy being on the other side to deal a kick to Harriet's face, sending her into the egg hammer she was fighting. She tried to run away again, but Ivy whipped at her ankles to bind them together, leaving her open for the egg hammer to smash her into the ground. Joanna and Marrow found themselves back to back, surrounded by various badniks, including a single egg hammer that charged straight at them. Marrow had thrown out Fetch before snapping his fingers at the egg hammer. Stay. This forced the robot to stand in place, frozen, as the boomerang weapon went around to clip the weapons of several incoming badniks while 4 more charged in, allowing Joanna to deal with them with her bladed staff, which she spun around before slicing diagonally to cut an egg pawn apart, and then thrusted at her staff forward to impale an egg fighter before pulling out as she held her staff in the air and swung it around to decapitate the 2 egg fighters remaining. Just then, however, Ivy's portal appeared as the thorny whip was sent out to grab at Marrow's arm, the one he had pointed to the still frozen egg hammer, and pulled it away. Wah! Wait! No! This caused the egg hammer to unfreeze as it resumed its charge and swung its hammer at Marrow to send him flying to the wall. Joanna attempted to fall back and shoot her crossbow at it, only to be tripped up long distance by Ivy with her portal whip combo again, allowing the egg hammer to come in and smash at her with its weapon. Bianca once again advanced on Clover, trying to keep him close and unable to run away as he found himself backed into a corner, using Kingfisher's rod form to block Bianca's restless slashes. He spotted one opening and delivered a kick to her stomach to push her back as he sent out his fishing line again, but she swerved her head away to allow the fishing line to not only knock down the arrows Robin tried to shoot at her, but also hook her by her shoulder and pull her in. Bianca disappeared through a green portal from below and reappeared behind Clover to kick him into the oncoming Robin that he accidentally pulled in, knocking the two together. "What's the matter, Clover?" Bianca taunted as she flashed her prism daggers. Running out of luck, she showed the reflections of Ivy in one dagger and Clover in the other. "She's copying my good fortune," Clover exclaimed. "But, you've only copied your teammates." Robin was surprised by this as well. "Semblances evolve," Bianca smirked. "I can still only do 2 at a time, but I think these are the appropriate pair for this fight." She spun her daggers in her hands as she charged at the pair again. Robin pushed Clover out of the way as she pulled up her crossbow's shield form to block the dagger thrust. "Bianca, whatever's going on with you, I know this isn't you." She tried to plead. "We were classmates, friends." "I don't know what you're talking about," Bianca said as her eyes narrowed. "Yes, you do. You didn't let Atlas or Ironwood tell you what you could do with your life. Who are you to let someone else do that?" Robin questioned. "Shut up." Bianca swiped her feet to trip up Robin and was about to slash at her, only to feel her arm being ensnared by Clover's fishing line, giving Robin a chance to shoot her foot up into her stomach, bringing her down to grab her by her shoulder and pull her into a headbutt, which caused Bianca to stumble backwards slightly. "I don't know if you're getting through to her," Clover said as he helped Robin up. "But she's not the only one we have to worry about." He gestured behind to see 2 egg hammers and about 5 or so more badniks appearing before them. Meanwhile, in the larger chamber of the ice factory, multiple explosions erupted the whole area as a volley of missiles was sent out by the mutant Grim Badnik hybrid abomination that was known as the Giga Genesis. The various explosions caused the group consisting of Seal, Vine, Elm, May, and Fiona to scatter all across the area. Seal and May happened to be closest to the Giga Genesis as it hovered over the pair, lifted one of its enormous arms over them and tried to bring it down to smash on them. Only for Silver to fly in and catch the giant limb with his psychokinetic grip. Silver. May exclaimed in surprise. I'll handle the big guy. You guys just focus on those rogue huntresses. The gray-furred hedgehog shouted with a yell as he forced the Giga Genesis all the way up towards the ceiling, closer towards the inoperable power core near the ceiling. It looked like he was trying to ram it in. However, multiple missile silos across its body opened up to fire multiple missiles from all directions as they honed in on Silver. This forced him to release his grip on the Giga Genesis itself and catch the missiles with his psychokinesis before flinging them in multiple directions across the large chamber. That's when Silver looked up with a gasp to see two of the Giga Genesis arms extend upwards and drive into the ceiling, making it appear the mutant Grim Badnik hybrid was hanging off the ceiling like an animal instead of a machine as it swung its massive arms at him, forcing Silver to fly up and around avoid the deadly swings. Whoa! Silver just barely dodged one vertical swing that passed by above him, and when one arm was about to be brought down onto him, he caught it with his powers, but it still left him open for the second arm to lunge forward, strike Silver and send him flying and crashing to the wall on the other side of the chamber. Ow! The futuristic hedgehog groaned as he pried himself from the wall. Okay, definitely doesn't fight like the last one, must be that grim thing inside. Another set of missiles was sent flying his direction, but Silver had taken out Galahad and threw it towards the missiles, the spiked shield cutting through the rockets and causing them to explode before they could hit him. Silver then recalled his shield back with his powers and smirked. But I'm not one to back down. He flew straight towards the abomination that attacked him. Come on, you monster. Back at the bottom of the factory, Vine had pulled himself up onto a pipe with his aura arms that he stretched towards Rudra to grab her, but she dove into the ground to avoid the hands as she swam her way upwards and towards the ceiling behind him, with Vine making sure to follow her intended path. Once she saw she was above him at a position to lunge from, he jumped down just as she lunged forward with her drill weapons pointing outward. While airborne, he made sure to catch her with his aura arms as he spotted his incoming teammate. Elm. He threw Rudra towards her. Sticking her feet to the ground with her own semblance, Elm caught her and pinned her arms to her sides using her own arms and Timber's pole. Come on, surrender. Elm encouraged. You can't win. How arrogant, just like any other Atlesian. Rudra stated as she used her semblance to dive into the ground, slipping through Elm's grip again before shooting back up with a punch from her drill weapon. Though Elm kept her semblance going to keep her grounded, that strike did hurt quite a bit. Rudra landed on the ground to face Vine and Elm as they both exchanged looks and nods. Seal had cricket drawn as she fired multiple light shots to intercept the fireballs that Roan shot at her, causing them to explode midair. And through the resulting smokescreen, May and Fiona both charged forward with their respective staffs. May reached her forward to swing her staff at her, though Roanne blocked it with the bulk of drop and roll on her right arm. She was forced to use the other on her left to block the staff swing from Fiona. Sorry about this. The sheep faunus apologized as a light whip came out from the smoke and ensnared Roan by her waist, pulling her directly towards Seal, who delivered a kick to her face to knock her down. Roan was then surrounded by all three. Her semblance and weapons are suited for long range. She's not that good at close combat. May told Seal. Understood. She nodded as the three charged in at her from all sides. Blaze hopped across the inactive conveyor belts of the inoperative assembly line as the mutant Sphinx gave chase, smashing and bashing through whatever was in its way. Blaze quickly raised a wall of fire to temporarily halt its path as she slid under a belt before boosting herself straight up in time to see the mutant Sphinx emerge from the firewall and slash its enormous arms to destroy the belt that she was previously on. Fortunately, the Fire Princess was already above the monster thanks to flames from her feet and boosted herself forward to lunge, lavating into its left head while the blade expanded as she shot a blast of fire through it to completely eviscerate the whole head. The mutant Sphinx roared in anger as it flexed its wings to ascend higher, but Blaze had already jumped forward, past the beast as she swung, lavating to send a wave of flame at the base of its wings, severing the left one, which caused the monster to plummet to the ground just as Blaze landed behind it. She didn't get much time to rest though, as the two snake heads emerged from the dust to snap and slash at her with its fangs, but Blaze was able to rapidly swing her sword to parry most of the strikes even as she found herself backing up to face the recovering mutant as it turned around and unleashed a stream of fire from its remaining head at Blaze. But the Fire Princess extended her hand forward to halt the flames as they bypassed around her completely. Wretched beast. Let me show you true mastery of the flame. She pointed the flaming levitating forward as a ring of fire appeared around her body. She boosted herself upwards with bursts of flame from her feet to meet the beast as it brought its enormous arms down towards her. Winter used various glyphs at her feet to dash in various directions and avoid the bolts of green lightning that the mutant Turix shot at her from its mouth. She flexed her hand to generate a glyph to act as a shield from the next bolt before using that same glyph to summon a swarm of miniature Nevermores which charged at the mutant Turix and flew all around it to slash it with their talons. Winter added to this by summoning a tornado with a glyph directly under the beast. However, the monster's whole body glowed green as it emitted a surge of green electricity to blast away the tornado and summons around it. But this also left it open for Winter to appear directly above it via her own glyph, which she used to boost herself straight at the beast, slicing past it with her sword as she landed. She then drove her sword into the ground to create more glyphs underneath the monster, which created a series of ice spikes to keep the monster trapped before Winter summoned a white manticore, which roared as it charged at the mutant, tackling it to the ground as it tried to tear it apart. Only for a bolt of green lightning to shoot up and blast through the summon, destroying it as Winter prepared herself for the next round of attacks. So, these are Merlot's mutants that Ironwood reported on back at Beacon. And I must say, they are strong. Hang tight, Weiss. I'll make sure you and everyone else is safe and sound. Meanwhile, in an underground icy cavern, Tails did his best to try and fly the cyclone through the compact space and avoid the charging mutant Megalith. But the monster was far stronger and more durable, evident by how it easily smashed through all the pillars of rock and ice, which would have damaged the cyclone had Tails collided into it. But even with his expert piloting, the inability to properly maneuver through such a tight space cost him precious time as the mutant Megalith closed the gap. It swung its enormous tusks to strike and catch the cyclone before charging forward to slam it into a nearby wall. Tails felt his whole body rock from the impact as he saw multiple alerts pop up all over his monitor. He then looked to see the mutant Megalith raise its front legs to try and smash him. Oh no, you don't. I gave my cyclone plenty of upgrades here in Atlas. He pulled down on a lever, causing a shield to pop up around it, one that surged with purple electricity as when the mutant Megalith's feet were brought down, it created a repulsive shockwave that actually pushed the enormous beast back. Hard light dust mixed with lightning and bit of gravity creates a repulsive shield to push back anyone that tries to strike it. And that's not all. He pressed a red button. Engage battle mode. The engines at the rear all began to shift and change, extending outwards as a pair of mechanical feet appeared at the ends while joints extended from where they connected to the main cockpit, creating a pair of enormous metal legs that allowed the cyclone to stand. Not only that, but the wings on the sides folded and combined together on both sides, with the metal plates opening to reveal cables underneath that allowed the wings to not only flexibly bend, but even project some hard light dust to create semi-transparent constructs resembling arms and fists, all of which surged with purple electricity much like the barrier he just used. The Cyclone had transformed from a ship to a fully functional mech. Cyclone Battle Mode, X-Tornado Engage. Tails pushed his mech, now dubbed the X-Tornado, forward. Rockets from its leg caused the mech to leap towards the face of the mutant Megalith as it threw its left energized fist to its face, creating enough of a repulsive force that it actually broke through much of its bone armor, and even forced the beast to multiple steps back. By creating a steady charge with lightning dust, I'm able to provide my other dust weapons, such as hardlight and gravity, with a stable power source to keep it going for days on end. Tails smirked. I was hoping to show this off to Sonic a bit, but I'll just show him the recording of me beating this mutant Grim into paste. Let's go. Ports on the cockpit's side opened, allowing Tails to fire a volley of rapid-fire laser blasts onto the mutant Megalith's exposed parts, causing it to holler in pain. Meanwhile, Watts continued to watch Tails' fight unfold on the monitor before him, all while his own scroll was hooked up to a monitor that showed the blueprints of the Cyclone and its X-Tornado battle mode. He chuckled hauntingly. How childish. He has access to the most advanced technology in this world, dust at his fingertips, and his first instinct is to build a giant toy. But then again, he is a child after all. But with that sense of mocking came a very bitter taste in his mouth. And to think a child could actually overcome a virus of my making. Watts growled. Well, don't get too confident because you got lucky once, boy. He scowled at the image of Tails on the monitor. I'll show you true genius soon enough. And then I'll have your pelt on my wall. He saw the screen of his scroll beep red with a brown cursive W appearing in the middle of it. He smirked as he unplugged the scroll from the monitor, just in time for the larger machine behind to beep and sound an alarm. Ah, perfect timing. Watts stood up to step towards the dual pods that were connected to the white Chaos Emerald at the top and saw the readings on the monitors plugged into each. On the right pod laid Freya, whose own heart rate, brainwave readings, and other similar functions were now at 0. Freya, the previous Winter Maiden, was no more. At least she died peacefully and in her sleep, not that Watts cared for it. He then looked to the right pod where everything appeared to be finished there. All the mechanical and dust upgrades were complete, as was the aura transfer process. With the Chaos Emerald providing the means to properly bridge the gap, Freya's aura had been siphoned away and filtered to extract the power that was previously bound to her and then given into new host. Said host had undergone some significant cybernetic upgrades thanks to all the Eggman technology Starline had accumulated and studied, with these particular upgrades being based off that of Metal Sonic with the necessary modifications to complement her body, power, and build. We actually did it. Watts looked over the monitor on the pod to see that all the subjects' vitals were stable. We actually managed to artificially transfer a maiden's power to a new host. The pod door then hissed opened as she stepped outside, finally able to walk after so long. Eat your heart out, Ozpin. Much of her outer body appeared a mix of sleek metal armor or metallic exoskeleton, all of it shining a crimson red with orange and gold outlines here and there. Her hands were metallic equipped with claws and armored arm guards with spiked shoulders. Her legs were also mechanical now with spiked boots and dark metal shin guards. She had a bright red fabric chest plate that resembled her old dress somewhat. The right side of her face appeared to be normal, though her eye was now red, having been replaced by a robotic optic. The left side of her face, which was now partially covered by her hair, was stained red with a glowing blue optic. She also had a metallic mask-like cover over her mouth as well. The mask opened to reveal her mouth, which was mostly organic still as she took a deep breath. "How do you feel, Cinder?" Watts asked. Or should I say, our Metal Maiden. Cinder now felt her own arms, flexed her hands as she observed them from the front and back. She lifted her legs to see how they felt. So far, her body appeared to feel like it did before, only somewhat lighter. Though she didn't feel anything inside like she did before, more like her limbs moved according to her own mind, like they were being controlled from outside her body, which felt surreal, but she was nonetheless satisfied to even move again after so long. But now came the important part. She closed her seemingly normal right eye as she tried to feel the power that was within. And when she opened it, both her right eye and left optic were encompassed in an orange fiery glow. Not only that, certain parts on her right arm and leg began to glow orange, including the spikes on her shoulder as a flame appeared in the palm of her hand. She felt her right hand as the same parts on her left arm and leg now shined blue as an icy cold vapor appeared in the palm of that hand as well. The power of the Winter Maiden now flowed in her. Never better. Cinder smirked to Watts. "You have my thanks, Arthur. Truly. Now then, why don't we test out my new power, shall we?" She tried to seize him by his throat, only for her hand to stop just shy of him, much to her shock. "What?" Watts' smirk never left his face. "You were saying." Cinder tried to reach for him again with her other hand, but she couldn't touch him, her hand stopping just shy of his face. She tried to reach him with both hands, only to meet the same result. With a growl, she produced another flame in her hand and tried to blast it at Watts, only for that flame to extinguish itself before it could be let loose. What's going on?" She looked to her hands in confusion. "You really didn't think we'd go out of our way to give you one of the four most powerful sources of power in our world without some kind of contingency?" Arthur asked rhetorically. "Aside from all your physical upgrades, we put a few key programmings in your body's software. I'll spare you the scientific details and just summarize. Any attempt to harm either me or my partner will cause your body to shut down movements just shy of the action being performed. Simply put, you can't touch me. On the other hand," he held up a remote and pressed a button on it, causing Cinder's body to stiffen as an electrical current ran through it, causing her to grunt in pain before she fell to her knees. "You," she growled. Unlike you, Cinder, I think things through. Watts gloated. So let me be clear, you are not being given a chance to redeem yourself to Salem, but are rather a weapon under my control. He kneeled to her level. I say, stay, you stay. I say, fetch, you fetch. And if I have to show you a bit of discipline, you had better not bare your teeth. We won't kill you, but we can administer a powerful shock to your nervous system to cause you agonizing pain. Do you understand? Cinder said nothing but glared as hard as she could. If looks could kill, Watts would be dead 1,000 times over. That glare vanished as Cinder was once again shocked by Watts' remote. Do you understand? Cinder couldn't believe it. She had finally gotten the power she longed for, was finally back on her feet, and had the power to exact the revenge she deserved. But now, she'd been reduced to an attack dog for Watts. Salem was one thing, she was practically a demi-goddess. But this man, this pitiful excuse of a scientist. The only thing worse would to be under Eggman's leash. Do you understand? Watts repeated again, threatening to shock her again. Yes, I understand. Cinder held her head low. See, was that so hard? He patted her on the head like a dog, which only caused her to groan. But don't worry. You'll get your chance to butcher Sonic and his friends soon enough. Now, stand up, he instructed as he retrieved the white Chaos Emerald from the machine. We have a schedule to keep. Cinder did as instructed, standing up to follow Watts as they quickly left the room, with Watts pressing a button on his scroll that caused all the computers to short-circuit before they exploded in flames. No need to leave any of this behind for Ironwood. Same for Freya's body that they left to burn. I may not be able to do anything now, but that can change. Cinder eyed Watts dangerously. I'll play along with you for now, Watts. But when you slip up, I'll take control back. And I'll make sure you suffer for this. But first, I have a date with a certain blue rat. Atlas Academy, Ironwood's office. The general sat at his desk, his hands enclosed together as he contemplated everything that led to this point. A year ago, he was one of the supporting pillars that kept the darkness at bay. And now everything seemed to be falling apart. While it was true that Vale was purged free of the Grim, an act that he would have thought to be impossible, the rest of the world could be on the verge of collapse. Mistral was on the verge of a civil war, they recently lost contact with Vacuo, discrimination against the Faunus was at an all-time high, and he had now lost the Winter Maiden and one of his most prized assets to an unknown force that was neither Salem nor Eggman, both of whom haven't appeared to have made any moves on Atlas as of yet. But the wait for that was agonizing and he had zero control over any of that. He hated not being in control, not being able to do anything to protect his kingdom and everyone in it. He was strongly considering closing Atlas borders for safety's sake until Sonic and the others found the Chaos Emeralds and used their power to destroy Salem. But if the enemy found those gemstones, then they would face total annihilation. No way around it. Ironwood felt like he was holding a delicate scale that if there was even the tiniest shift, everything would fall apart. James. He gasped slightly to see Pietro in his office, looking at him with concern. Professor Polendina, he tried to stand up straight. Can I help you? Pietro looked to him with an understanding expression. You look as if you need a friend to talk to. James sighed slightly as Pietro felt like the only real friend he had with him at this point as he turned around to face the window. I'm the leader of Remnant's only military, and I am more than aware of the controversies behind all of it. He placed a hand on the window. Half the time, it feels like I have the power to make the changes needed to save our world. And yet, even with all of that, you still feel powerless, Pietro said as he motioned for his chair to move by the general's side. I know it's not the same, but I am completely powerless as to what happens with Penny right now. And even if we do rescue her, there is always the risk that something else could happen and I may not be there to help her when she needs it. Ironwood looked to him with his own worry showing. How do you deal with that? How do you handle that feeling of helplessness? I think of all the things she knows. Pietro listed off. Everything I've taught her, everything she's learned on her own, and just what she's capable of. As much as we want to control everything to keep those we care for safe, we have to accept that there will always be things outside our control. All we can do is put our faith in those who can act when we can't. And what if they fail? Ironwood asked. How can we know if they succeed or not? There is no guarantee for either. Pietro said. And yes, that is very unfortunate. But if we always think of the worst-case scenario, then we begin to lose hope. Let me say that it's fine to be cautious, to have a backup plan if something goes wrong, to prepare yourself for said scenario. But we must also have the hope that everything will work itself out. And if they can't, then we'll find a way to deal with it. Emphasis on the we. James, I know that you feel you must handle this burden alone, but you're not. I'm here. So are other people who feel the same way you do right now. James looked to his friend with a smile. Thanks, that actually does help a bit. These were the same kind of words Ozpin would tell him, and even if he disagreed with the man, his respect for him never wavered. Always happy to help a friend. Pietro smiled. Suddenly, however, the windows in front of them became sealed as a metallic doorframe closed down on all the windows. Even the main door into the office was sealed shut by metal doors with all the lights turning red. What? James immediately went to his desk to type away at the console while Pietro tried to access the computer built into his chair. The lockdown procedure has been initiated. The entire base is being sealed off. I can't access communications either. Pietro stated with worry. It was true, the entire Atlas military facility was being put under lockdown as all the lights turned red. All the doors and windows were sealed shut by reinforced doorways, cutting off all the soldiers and personnel from their comrades and allies. Even the communications were being scrambled as soldiers and other military officers found themselves trapped in whatever room they happened to be in. Barracks, break rooms, cafeterias, hallways, armories, training rooms. And even control operations as all their monitors flashed red with the word lockdown shown on all the screens, with the operators struggling to regain control. Communications are jammed on all channels. Emergency lockdown procedures are activated on all levels. Only the general can initiate that procedure. Did he make contact with anyone here? Not since the ACE operatives went out. We need eyes on the outside. Now. However, there was one monitor that didn't show a lockdown or jammed communications alert, but rather an activation, something that made the operator very surprised and very nervous. Yes, sir. I don't know how, but the Atlesian Knights have been activated. What? His superior came to him from behind. And it's not just them. Even the paladins are coming online. Without any pilots. How? And how many? The superior questioned. All of them, sir, the frightened operative said. All our knights and paladins were brought to the hangars, so that our ships can be ready to move, at a moment's notice. The one in charge of operations felt his face go pale. Get me eyes on the hangars. Now. In every hangar within the base, every hangar that housed various Atlesian airships, from dropships to the much larger airships that often acted as flagships for smaller fleets, all their doors opened as hundreds of Atlesian knights, each with glowing red visors, marched out in perfect unison. Each and every single one appeared to be armed as well. And it wasn't just the knights, the Atlesian paladin mech suits also marched out with them despite lacking pilots of their own. Each of the ships had their doors open, with the dropship's side doors opening to allow what AK units that could fit to board. The larger flagships had their larger doors open up with ramps that allowed the remaining AK units and Atlesian paladins to step in as well. Within a matter of minutes, all the ships had been completely boarded as whatever program that allowed the paladins to operate on their own also took control of each of the ships, controls as their monitors turned red. They all powered on as the bay doors slowly opened, revealing the white cold sky as the vessels began to fly out. All of this was witnessed by Starline via one of his windows conjured by the warp topaz as he stood in a larger chamber within his own base. Like clockwork, Starline complimented. I must compliment Arthur for coming up with a unique virus, and Raksho for having the technological mastery to upload it into the Atlas military mainframe, as well as Thornmain and his resources to allow access into the Atlas database in the first place. Now Ironwood is under lockdown, and his fleet and robotic army are under our command. The mad platypus scientist looked up to a massive ring-shaped device, one that was infused with gravity dust and had the cyan chaos emerald plugged in at the very top. Just you wait, my dearest doctor. Starline sneered evilly. You're in for quite the show. Back with Ruby's group, the girl had sped straight towards Ix and threw out a mighty kick with all the strength she could muster. But Ix crossed his arms to block the strike, despite the aftershock that blew back behind him. She tried to slash her sword at him, but Ix threw his arms out to send a wave of gravity power that sent Ruby rolling across the ground, though Penny was quick to catch her as Weiss moved in next with her summoned sword, slicing at Ix, who threw his own spiked fist out to shatter Weiss' blade, much to her own shock before he grabbed her by her head to slam her down to the ground and threw up to the ceiling, following through with a blast of gravitational force to embed her in the ceiling. A green laser blast was shot at him, courtesy of Penny with floating array, which did strike Ix at first. Though he rolled across the ground, he quickly recovered as he slammed his fists into the ground to create a barrier of stone to block the lasers, which exploded as a result. And from that explosion, Ix shot forward, gunning straight for Penny, who flew to meet him halfway. With 3 of her blades conjoining around her right arm, she slashed forward, which Ix swerved to avoid before grabbing Penny's arm as it was swung downward and threw her to a wall. But she recovered quickly as she flew straight for Ix, grabbing him by his shoulders and slammed him into the opposing wall. However, Ix grabbed both Penny's arms with his own and was able to wrestle them off with his superior strength. That's when Penny produced several swords around her with the intent to slice at him while her arms were restrained. Only for another pulse of gravity, albeit significantly smaller, to explode around him and blast away the swords, leaving Penny herself open as Ix threw out multiple rapid punches faster than Penny could anticipate. And each of his fists were coated in a dark purple aura, with gravity powers to enhance their strength and speed, as Penny was unable to counter any of them, each strike rocking her body as she tried to fly backwards for some distance. But Ix was quick to grab her by her leg and slam her on the ground behind him before pulling her up with a punch to her face that sent her careening down the hall. "Penny!" Ruby exclaimed as she zoomed after her, attempting to pass Ix as he noticed her and tried to strike her down with a punch. Only for a white manticore to come in and slam its body into Ix, smashing him through the metallic wall and into the adjacent hallway, all thanks to Weiss and her summoning as she stood close to her brother and mother, both of whom were hiding as they watched in shock and fear at the sight of Weiss and her friends being overwhelmed by this one individual. "Penny, are you okay?" Ruby was already by her side as she helped her up. "My aura has sustained serious damage, though it is recovering," Penny reported. "This individual, he is strong. And the way he's fighting, it's almost exactly like Knuckles," Ruby said. "Not exactly." Penny shook her head. "I've seen the way he fights during our tenure in Vale. This cyborg may have a fighting style that's similar to Knuckles, with physical strength to match his own. But the use of dust, gravity to create a defensive counter as well as overwhelm Knuckles' superior strength, and earth dust to counter his ability to dig, just as Metal Sonic was designed to counter Sonic, I believe that this cyborg was created the way he was to counter and surpass Knuckles himself." That's when Ruby's eyes widened in horror. This monster was strong enough to surpass Knuckles. She'd seen him demonstrate feats of unimaginable strength before, such as overpowering Yang in her full-powered semblance, and even pushing back a Goliath with sheer force alone. And if this monster was strong enough to counter him, Ruby was already beginning to shake as she felt a sharp pain in the back of her neck, which Penny noticed. "Ruby." She did a quick scan and was surprised at what she saw. "Ruby, your body temperature has dropped significantly. And there appears to be some sort of abnormality affecting your central nervous system." "Penny, I'm fine." Ruby tried to brush off. "It's connecting to your brain, Ruby. You are not fine," Penny argued. "Now's not the time to worry about that," Ruby argued back. "Look out." Weiss screamed towards them as the wall next to them exploded. Though Penny was quick enough to grab Ruby and fly away, the shockwave from the resulting explosion sent them both rolling towards Weiss, whom she caught by creating a pair of glyphs by her sides. That's when they saw Ix hovering out of the hole he had made, carrying the severed head of the white manticore Weiss had summoned before it disintegrated in its hands. It then turned its gaze towards the 3 again as he created a sphere of gravity power in his hands. "Everyone, get back," Weiss ordered as she conjured a line of glyphs which produced a variety of ice spikes from the ground to act as a makeshift shield. But when Ix threw his gravity ball, it exploded when it made contact and created a shockwave that threw back not only Ruby, Weiss, and Penny, but also Whitley and Willow further down the hall. Ix then appeared before the 3 huntresses as they attempted to recover. Penny recovered first and threw a punch towards Ix's face, which he caught with his palm before pulling her into a headbutt to knock her to the ground, where he proceeded to repeatedly pound her with his fist to her face. No, stop it. RWBY tried to pull herself up and grab at Ix from the side, but he flung her off with his arm. When he tried to punch again, his fist was caught in a glyph conjured by Weiss, who was on her knees as she attempted to stand up. And from that glyph, a repulsive force was sent out to push Ix back somewhat before Weiss slammed her hands on the ground to create another glyph, one that allowed her to summon an RWBY as it advanced on the downed Ix, but when it swung its blade down onto him, he just threw his fist out to shatter the larger sword, before flying up to smash through the RWBY's whole body like it were made of glass. To Weiss, horror. Ix was now directly in front of her as he grabbed her by her throat and lifted her in the air to begin squeezing. She was already starting to choke, despite her aura as she kicked and thrashed. Weiss. RWBY performed another dashing kick attack to Ix, only for him to raise a rock wall and block her strike, separating her and the recovering Penny from them. Get off of her. Whitley grabbed onto Ix by his neck and tried to wrestle him off. Despite being terrified, he was not about to let his sister suffer like this. His strength, however, was so weak that Ix didn't even pay attention to him. Willow saw her children struggling against this monster and felt her heart nearly stop at it. Her son wrestled against him with all his might but was barely a flea to him. And Weiss, she was having the life choked out of her before her eyes. Once again, she was helpless to watch as her children were left at the non-existent mercy of a monster. But unlike Jacques, this beast was going to kill them all. No. Willow fell to her knees and hands, not just in a panic, but as something else emerged from within. No. Was it motherly instinct reawakening a power she hadn't used in years? Whatever it was, she felt it burning inside and reached for it. Not my children. Not again. Willow screamed at the top of her lungs as a giant glyph was summoned directly under Ix, forcing him to let go of Weiss as Whiteley was knocked off. Penny had managed to break through the stone barrier with RWBY as they both gasped at what was unfolding before them. The glyph was massive, far larger than any they've seen Weiss or even Winter make. And something began to emerge from it, something so big that the strain alone was causing Willow's white aura to flash like it was about to shatter at any second. It was a white megalith. RWBY, Weiss, Whitley, and even Penny all had their eyes widen with even a few dropped jaws at the sight of the massively summoned Grimm. It was so big and heavy that much of the surrounding hallway had its walls torn off, as was much of the ceiling. Even the floor was buckling underneath its weight. Ix stared up at the beast as it roared, lifted its front legs, and brought them down onto Ix. Despite trying to create a gravity dome around himself for protection, the force of the impact was enough for the floor to break apart, causing Ix to fall with the summoned megalith right over him, both falling into a dark abyss below as the sounds of crashing on the lower levels was heard. Whoa, that was all RWBY could say as she saw that. Very much so. The equally odd Penny nodded. Weiss and Whitley both found themselves staring at their exhausted mother as she fell to her hands and knees. How did she? Whitley wondered. She used to be a huntress, Weiss explained as best as she could. Klein said, how our grandfather trained her, how she fought Grimm of all sizes before, but I didn't think that she could do something like that. A proud smile formed on her face as she pictured her mother in her youth, wearing armor similar to Nicholas Schnee, and standing proudly over a defeated Grimm horde. Even if it was only a mental image her imagination conjured, she liked it. Even Whitley chuckled somewhat as he looked to his own hand. My aura's unlocked too, and if I'm a Schnee like Weiss, Winter, or even Mother, maybe I can do the same thing. But that's when Willow fell face flat on the floor, her own aura finally shattering, causing all smiles to fade away into expressions of worry. Mother. Weiss was the first to reach her with Whitley right behind her. Even Penny carried RWBY over the hole in the floor to look at her. Is she okay? Whitley asked with worry. Penny did a quick scan. She is exhausted. Her aura broke underneath the strain, likely from a use of a semblance she hadn't performed in a very long time, especially from a summon that large. We need to go. Now, Weiss said immediately. If her aura is broken, her semblance, and anything she summoned with it, will disappear. And he'll catch up. RWBY realized gravely as she looked down the hole. Yeah, we need to run. I'll carry her. Penny picked up Willow bridal style effortlessly. Thank you, Penny. Weiss nodded. With that, the group ran as fast as they could, hoping to find some escape or means of communicating with the outside soon before they have to deal with that monster again, or whatever other traps that Starline has in place. Back in the cargo hold, Clover and Robin were both fighting a multitude of badniks that continued to wear them down despite their best efforts. Robin shot her arrows at the faces of 2 egg pawns before the egg hammer rushed her, which she rolled out of the way to avoid the smash that dented the floor. She recovered and fired her crossbow, aiming for the eyes, and despite effectively blinding it, the large badnik did swing its hammer in her direction, which she couldn't avoid as the strike sent her flying and crashing hard into the wall, leading to her own lilac-colored aura to flicker. Clover had already taken the head off one egg fighter with Kingfisher before quickly extending the fishing cable to bind the ankles of one egg pawn and hauled it over to slam it into the blinded egg hammer, knocking it to the ground before leaping over as he recalled the fishing hook. While directly over it, Clover flung his fishing line again to sink into the open optics of the egg hammer's head before pulling as he landed to rip the whole head off. That's when a green portal opened up behind him for a prism dagger to stab him in the back, causing his own turquoise aura to flash before he was kicked across the head, closer to the recovering Robin as they looked to see Bianca standing over them. "Aw, poor babies. You look tired. Maybe it's time for you to take a nap." She flashed her blades at them before charging. "Stay." Marrow pointed to the egg hammer to freeze it in place, allowing for Harriet to zoom in and throw multiple rapid punches to its face, wrapping her own legs around its neck area to hang on. She hoped that if she focused it all on one area, she could do some significant damage to it. However, a pair of green portals opened up, with one being behind Marrow as his leg was ensnared by a thorny whip causing him to trip up. While a second one appeared underneath the large badnik, causing it and Harriet to fall in, with Harriet as well. The other side appeared to be directly over Marrow, who looked up with a scream as the egg hammer fell on top and crashed onto him, breaking apart the robot's body and shattering his own aura in the process, while Harriet was sent flying off from the impact. Marrow. Harriet dug him out of the rubble and saw that while he was alive, he was unconscious. "Ah, sorry. Did I hurt your little pet dog?" Ivy mocked as she stood over the defeated Joanna's body. Harriet glared at the rogue huntress who did that to her teammate. With lightning flashing around her, she zoomed right for her in anger, but Ivy opened up a portal in her path, and Harriet went in before she could stop. The other side of the portal was directly above her, with Harriet falling out before Ivy snapped her whip to bind Harriet's legs and swing her around, using Harriet's own momentum from her advantage and sent her flying to the wall on the other side, leaving a painful mark as her pink aura flashed. Bianca, meanwhile, appeared to be holding her own against the exhausted Clover and Robin quite well, making excellent use of her own copied semblances, as well as Clover and Robin's differentiating fighting styles. When she moved away, Robin tried to shoot at her, but she opened a portal and swerved as the arrows passed through them and reappeared to strike Clover in the back before Bianca jumped through that portal to slash at Clover's back again before charging at Robin, who was forced to use her weapon's shield to defend herself. "Bianca, snap out of it, please," Robin pleaded as their weapons locked. "We were both in the same class together. But when we graduated, we didn't go to Atlas." She saw Bianca's eyes flicker. "I stayed in Mantle, you went to the outlier villages because they couldn't count on the military to protect them." "I know, that's why I'm out here," Bianca growled. "Out here helping someone endanger innocent people," Robin argued. "You never took garbage from anyone before, why are you letting someone else pull your strings right now?" "No one is pulling my strings." Bianca felt her head throb as the words Robin was saying seemed to have an impact on her. Clover noticed this as well as he held his exhausted side. "I'm not sure if this will work, but here's hoping she snaps out of it, whether it's my semblance or hers." He flicked his pendant in her direction, with one of Bianca's prism daggers shining brightly. This distracted Bianca enough that it gave Robin a chance to grab her friend by her shoulders and slam her in for a headbutt, causing her to stumble backwards somewhat. Ivy saw this as well and realized that with all the badniks beaten, they had to end this now. She looked to the recovering Harriet that looked like she was ready to keel over at any minute and smirked. "What's the matter? Don't tell me that this is the best the Ace Ops can do." Ivy taunted, causing Harriet to growl, too exhausted and angry to offer a comeback. "I would have thought Ironwood's attack dogs were the best huntsmen in all of Remnant. Or was that just talk?" Harriet's eyes flashed with electricity. Didn't one of your own die pretty recently too? What was their name, Tortuga? Harriet's pupils shrunk as she dashed at Ivy with a rage-filled scream, and right into Ivy's portal, which opened up right next to Clover as Harriet threw a punch to his face with enough force that it shattered whatever was left of his aura as he was sent spiraling in the air before landing to the ground with a thud. The fastest ace operative gasped in horror, realizing what she did. This left her open again as Ivy pulled her back into her portal with her whip and flung her into another portal that hung over Robin and Bianca, the latter still feeling dazed as she felt her head, only snapping out of it as Harriet was sent hurtling out to collide into Robin, breaking both their auras and knocking them out. Ivy fell out of that last portal and landed on both of them to ensure they were unconscious before checking on her leader. Bianca, you there? The leader of Team BRIR's ears rang as her vision became blurry before she felt something snap in place for her. With a blink of her eyes she saw her teammate looking at her with concern. Hello, Remnant to Bianca. You still there? Yeah, I'm here. She felt her hands for a second. Wait, am I? An orange portal suddenly appeared before him, revealing to be Starline with Watts and Cinder by his side, the platypus clapping. Well done, ladies. Well done. I was concerned with the numbers advantage at first, hence why I had sent Badniks to help wear them down. Fortunately, we were able to properly separate the ace operatives and happy huntresses, mixing their numbers together so that they would fumble all over each other. Watts commented. You see that, Cinder? That's what proper strategy looks like. The Metal Maiden silently glared at him. Now then, bring them together. We'll need to act quickly. Starline readied his hypno glove. This shouldn't take long, but let's not waste any time. He snapped his fingers, prompting Ivy to begin gathering the beaten huntsmen and huntresses together via her whip and portals. Though he noticed Bianca seeming hesitant. Is something wrong? No, she quickly said. Ivy can just do it faster than I can. They saw the unconscious Clover, Robin, Harriet, Joanna, and Marrow laid there not even a second later. See. Very well then. He leaned over Clover first as Cinder forced his eyes open and he began to administer the hypnotic programming. I don't know how it happened, maybe it was Clover's good fortune semblance, maybe it was mine copying it, or even both together, but my mind snapped back in place. Bianca thought to herself, now free of the brainwashing. Can't move yet, though. This guy is way too dangerous. I'll play along for now, try and snap the others out of it. And when he least suspects it, I'll skewer that platypus. She vowed silently. He's made a dangerous enemy out of Team BRIR. Tails piloted the X-Tornado mech straight towards the mutant Megoliath, throwing a powerful kick to its exposed face now that most of its bone armor had been broken off before activating the thrusters to fire off a stream of intense heat further into the mutant's flesh to further burn it away. The mutant Megoliath was forced backwards from this as it attempted to swing its tusks at the X-Tornado, with Tails actually using his mech's arm constructs to grab the right tusk before administering an electric shock to further weaken the beast before ripping the whole tusk off, which the X-Tornado now wielded as a blunt weapon. Merlot's mutagen is impressive, but I've already seen how his mutants work before. Tails said with confidence. He flew the X-Tornado up before lunging the tusk into the back of its neck. Cut the head off and the whole thing dies. Tails added to it by firing multiple rapid-fire energy blasts from the X-Tornado's cockpit to further burn away at the mutant's flesh as Tails drove the tusk in deeper until it reached the best spot for Tails to swing and completely sever the entire head. The mutant's body fell to the ground with its head rolling away before more green energy began to build up around it. But Tails saw this coming. Just like before with Merlot, all of the mutant Grimm explode upon their deaths. Tails had briefly deactivated the arm constructs around the X-Tornado and reactivated its barrier to protect himself from the resulting explosion that tore up much of the surrounding cavern and even blew a hole in the ceiling, exposing the outside again. Tails wasted no time in transforming the X-Tornado back into its cyclone jet mode and flew back outside through the hole. And right as he did, he got an alert on the plugged-in Miles Electric. The screen turned green and red, encryption broken. Communications re-established, complete with a spinning yellow ball with two fox tails at the end. Just as Tails was focused on the mutant, he also set an auto-program to break the jamming signal that made him unable to contact the rest of his friends. With a smile, he reopened the comms channel. This is Tails. Does anyone copy? Back on the assembly line, Blaze thrusted Lave 18 forward to send a condensed stream of fire onto the mutant Sphinx, which was able to push it back somewhat as it used its enormous arms to try and shield itself. Though the snake tails from behind slithered around and tried to get at Blaze from both sides, as was her intent. Kicking herself up with a burst of flame from her soles, Blaze flipped in the air, generating a wheel of fire that bisected each of the snake's heads before performing a circular flaming slash with her sword to cut the heads off completely and ensure they were no longer a threat. The mutant Sphinx roared as it got on all fours and charged at Blaze, who leapt over the lunge of its fanged mouth as she propelled herself higher with flames from her feet before shooting downward with Lave 18 pointing straight to pierce the back of the neck of the creature's only remaining head. With another surge of flames from her sword, she slashed to cut the entire head off, killing the beast. Blaze was also quick to notice mutants' body building up with energy and expected an explosion. She propelled herself backwards with more flames just before the creature detonated in an explosion of green energy. The Fire Princess gave a relaxing sigh before she received a call on her comms. "Hello, does anyone read me? Tails, it's Blaze. I hear you," she contacted back. "Blaze, that's good." Tails breathed a sigh of relief. "I was able to break through the block that kept our comms down. Not only that, I'm able to get everyone's location via their scrolls. I think I even found Penny's signal." "Where is everyone?" Blaze questioned. "Looks like Winter's not too far from your location, but everyone else is scattered deeper into this base." Tails reported. "Silver and half our team are a bit closer to the summit, so I can get to them. The others might be a bit of trouble. Are you able to get schematics for the base? Find possible routes?" Blaze asked. "No, it looks like the signals are kinda mixed between old Atlas Tech and Eggman's." Tails replied. "It's all jumbled together, like they were just thrown in the same blender, and I don't know if I can sort it out quickly enough." Blaze's look hardened somewhat as a serious expression appeared on her face. "But you do know their exact locations, correct?" "Yeah, why?" he asked. "You're familiar with Chaos Control, which Silver, Sonic, and Shadow have used via the Chaos Emeralds, correct?" Blaze began. "Well, I can use a similar ability via the Sol Emeralds known as Sol Salvation. It's how I was able to traverse here to Remnant from my own world. With the use of a single Sol Emerald, I can transport myself and those around me to another location." Oh, that makes sense," Tails said in amazement. "If the Sol Emeralds are like the Chaos Emeralds, then it would make sense they'd have similar abilities. I can't believe I didn't think about that myself. Yes, I didn't say anything before, because as I've said, I feared using the power of the Sol Emeralds, even just one, in another world besides my own would draw the Sol dimension closer to Remnant," Blaze informed. "And since we already have locations from my Earth popping up on Remnant from Sonic's Chaos Control in Vale, it would probably create an even bigger interdimensional mess." Tails understood. "But you think you can use it with just one Sol Emerald to gather everyone?" "I believe so. If Shadow and Sonic can do it with little issue, then it is likely," Blaze confirmed. "You get to Silver and his group since you're closer. Send me everyone else's location and I'll retrieve them." "You got it," Tails replied. In a matter of seconds, Blaze's scroll beeped, prompting her to pull it out as she got the exact coordinates of everyone in their party. "Thank you, Tails. I'll see you outside." Blaze's free hand illuminated with flame as she drew the green Sol Emerald. Closing her eyes to focus, the green Sol Emerald was coated in flames as it spun around her body rapidly, creating a sphere of flame around her body. Sol Salvation. The flame sphere condensed around her before it vanished completely, along with Blaze herself. Winter had summoned a pack of white Beowulfs that lunged at the mutant Turix, slashing and clawing all over its body. However, the mutated Grim proved to be far stronger as it slashed with its claws to tear apart one white Beowulf, bit down to kill a second, stomped on a third and ripped apart a fourth with its claws. The remaining two clung to its sides to bite down and claw on its neck area. But before it could attack again, Winter had summoned an all-white King Taijutsu that lunged forward and wrapped itself around the mutant Turix's body, taking it to the ground as the white Beowulfs continued to bite at its exposed parts while the white Taijutsu squeezed as tightly as it could. However, the monster's body surged with green lightning again before it all exploded, ripping apart the white summoned Grim, just as Winter had planned. For she had already created various glyphs around the monster, which were all black as they repelled the green electricity and sent it back at the mutant, striking it with its own attack and electrocuting its already damaged body. Winter followed through with several ice spikes generated from each glyph that launched themselves like missiles, piercing the mutant Tureks in every which way, further ripping its body apart, with even its folded-up wings being eviscerated. The monster looked weakly and defiantly towards Winter as it gave one final roar, only for Winter to dash past it in the blink of an eye, her sword drawn, and appear well past it. Right in time for the mutant's head to fall off. Winter also created another glyph in front of her, acting as a shield to protect herself from the resulting explosion. The eldest Schnee child gave a slight sigh of satisfaction before returning to the mission at hand. Just before a ball of fire appeared behind her, which expanded to reveal Blaze as the flames dissipated, much to Winter's surprise. Blaze. How? No time to explain. Just take my hand, Blaze stated, offering her hand, which Winter took. The green Sol Emerald then appeared again as it spun around them once more, creating a sphere of flames to encompass both. Sol salvation. Just like before, the flames engulfed the pair before they condensed and vanished. Back with Silver's group, while the futuristic hedgehog worked to keep the Giga Genesis at bay near the ceiling, using his psychokinesis to keep its enlarged metallic appendages and missile at bay, his huntsman allies down below appeared to be holding their own well against the rogue huntresses they were fighting. Elm brought Timber down onto Ruda, which she parried with her left drill weapon as she tried to lunge her right one at Elm, who locked herself into the ground with her aura roots as she spun Timber around to deflect the drill strikes before swinging her hammer at her to knock Ruda up into the air, where Vine caught her by her legs with his aura hands and held her up as high as he could reach her. But Ruda used her semblance to phase from his grip and dove back down into the ground. Roan was on the defensive against the restless onslaught from May, Fiona, and Seal, the two happy huntresses wielding their staffs while Seal had Cricket converted into a light sword mode. She tried to throw out her flamethrowers in all directions to keep her foes at bay, but they either leapt or dove underneath the flames to close the gap as Seal slashed at Roan with her light sword, sending her to May, who spun her staff to bring down one bladed end across her face while Fiona lunged hers into Roan's side. Sorry. Fiona winced as she swung her weapon to send Roan into Seal, who delivered a knee to her chin. On the ceiling, Silver caught the next volley of missiles with his powers and threw them back at the Giga Genesis, which blocked it with one of its arms before it swung the other one down at Silver, striking him and almost knocking him out of the air, though he quickly caught himself with his own powers. This thing's definitely tougher than before, Silver said to himself. Is it cause of the Grim controlling it? Come on, think, Silver. Blaze keeps telling you to use your head, so do it. He looked at the Giga Genesis that continued to hang from the ceiling. The robot itself was inoperable. In fact, it looked like the Grim was simply wearing it like a suit of armor. So, what would happen if that armor was taken away? That's when he also noticed the elastic black and green substance that connected the arms to the main body. A smirk appeared on his own face as an idea came to him. Got ya. He flew back up to challenge the monstrosity. Hey, come at me. The Giga Genesis responded by launching another set of missiles towards him, which Silver caught with his powers again before clenching his fist, causing the missiles to explode in midair in between him and the monster. This created a smokescreen that the Geist within was unable to see through. And that's when Silver made his move. Flying through the smoke and above the beast, he spotted the two armored appendages that kept the Giga Genesis suspended on the ceiling. He threw out Galahad to slice and sever through the elastic black and green that connected the missile frames, acting as arms, to the rest of the body, before pulling it back and sending it out again repeatedly to completely slice and sever those appendages from the main body. The Giga Genesis fell from the ceiling and towards the ground, which all the fighting huntsmen below noticed. However, the Giga Genesis extended its remaining two limbs to embed themselves into the inactive power core, halting its fall. What's wrong? Got your hands full? Silver taunted as he used his powers to yank out one of the severed arms from the ceiling and threw it with all his might straight down at the main body, which broke apart both, leading to the whole thing to explode, killing the mutated Geist within before it too exploded. The remainder of the metal frame, along with the inactive power core, went up in an explosion that led to the collapse of the main structure and forced everyone to run and scatter and avoid much of the falling debris. Fortunately, Silver was able to catch the largest rubble with his powers before it could hit the ground, much to the surprise and awe of his allies before he gently set it all down. "Everyone, okay," he called to them. "Still in one piece?" Elm called back. "We're good," Fiona shouted as well. However, May noticed someone missing from their party. Specifically, the person they were fighting. "Where's Roan?" Elm saw that hers and Vine's opponent were gone too. Rudra. The two rogue huntresses had used the commotion to regroup a bit of a distance away just as an orange portal opened up before them. They looked to each other with nods before entering said portal. They've escaped. Vine had managed to spot them from a vantage point he climbed up onto. "Should we go after them?" Silver questioned as they all regrouped as well. "No, we should meet up with the others." Vine shook his head. "In all likelihood they are being ambushed just as we are." That's when a laser ripped through the ceiling above them, creating a large hole that shined the bright sunlight into the dimly lit and partially destroyed chamber. The sudden wave of light forced them all to close their eyes before they opened them to see the cyclone flying through the hole and hover above them. "You guys need a lift?" Tails asked, smiling from within the cockpit. Meanwhile, Ruby, Weiss, Whitley, and Penny all ran together through the halls as the android girl continued to carry Willow. The mother of the Schnee family felt her eyes flutter open as she appeared to regain consciousness. "Where?" she muttered. "It's all right. You're safe," Penny assured as she continued to carry her. "Weiss, Whitley," Willow muttered with worry. "Safe. Thanks to you," Penny confirmed, causing Willow to smile as her eyes closed as she let herself rest in Penny's arms. Weiss smiled with gratitude towards Penny, as did Whitley, who looked exhausted from all this running, barely keeping up with his sister and her friends before he came to a stop. Putting his hands on his knees in exhaustion. I can't. He stuttered in exhaustion, prompting everyone else to stop as Weiss came to his side. "I can't run anymore." "Whitley, I know it's tough, but we have to keep moving," Weiss said. "How? Where?" Whitley looked to his sister in worry. Penny gave an audible gasp. "I just received a message from Tails. Communications are established and they are working to retrieve us as we speak." "Well, that's some good news at least." Ruby smiled somewhat before she heard the sounds of crashing and metal breaking apart just below their feet. Every instinct in her shouted to move and she listened to them. "Back. Jump back now." Her warning came in time as a large stone spike shot itself up from the ground in front of them, with the group stepping backwards somewhat. And that stone spike surged with purple energy that ripped through it until it exploded with a wave of gravitational power that blasted all of them backwards. Penny wrapped her arms around Willow to protect her as she took the brunt of the impact, while everyone else landed flat on the ground. They all looked up in clear terror to see Ix hovering out of the smoke. Immediately, Weiss summoned another Arma-Giga's sword to her hand while Penny handed one of her swords to Ruby, who stood by Weiss' side as Whitley stood close to Penny and his mother, whose eyes fluttered open from the commotion. However, right before Ix could attack, his cybernetic vision flickered as a message came in. "Ix. Change of plans. Retrieve Whitley and Willow Schnee alive. Stand by once they are contained." Without a word, Ix blasted forward with his gravity power providing him a boost in speed, smashing through Ruby and Weiss before pounding Penny in the face to knock her down. The force from the strike also knocked Willow out of her arms. "Mom!" Whitley exclaimed, only for Ix to grab him by his neck. He did the same thing for Willow, appearing over her as he picked her up the instant Penny recovered. "Let them go," she demanded, all her swords pointing forward. Ruby and Weiss recovered quickly too, but none of them dared to make a move or else risk harming either Whitley or Willow. And that's when an orange portal opened up underneath Ix and his hostages, leading to both of them falling into it, much to the horror of everyone else. "No!" Weiss screamed as she saw her mother and brother disappear from sight. She fell to her knees in shock as Ruby and Penny came to her. But before anything else could be said, a pillar of fire appeared in front of them, to their shock. Especially so as Blaze and Winter appeared in the Pilar's place as the flames died down. Weiss. Winter wasted no time in hugging her sister. Penny. She looked just as relieved to see her as well, and when she saw Ruby, her expression softened even more. Ruby rose. "Is everyone all right?" Blaze inquired. "No." Weiss shook her head. "Mother, Whitley, they were taken." "What?" Winter questioned. "By whom?" "Some kind of cyborg echidna," Ruby tried to explain. He He was too strong, he grabbed them and our enemy wields a type of gemstone that allows him to create wormholes that he can use to transport himself and others anywhere he wishes. Penny informed, though I suspect that he is still close by, along with Whitley and Willow. Then we'll get them back once we regroup. Blaze said, I'll teleport us outside for you to meet up with Tails, Silver, and the others while I retrieve the last of our allies. We'll get them back, Weiss. Winter assured her sister, looking at her both fiercely and gently. I promise. Weiss nodded shakily, trusting her elder sister's judgment. Okay. Blaze. Winter looked to her as the Fire Princess nodded. She produced the flaming green Sol Emerald again as it spun around the group to form a ring of fire, much to the awe of Ruby, Weiss, and Penny. Sol Salvation. The ring expanded in a flash and pillar of flames that engulfed the whole group before the pillar vanished, as did everyone inside it. Clover was the first to regain his senses as he tried to pick himself up but stumbled onto his hands as he felt both injured and exhausted. His aura was recovering, but it was at an all-time low. Even with his good fortune, he would lose if he were to fight in his current state. A series of groans around him alerted him to the presence of Robin, Harriet, Marrow, and Joanna, all scattered around him as they were all beaten and barely conscious themselves. Come on, get up. Clover groaned as he pushed himself up and nearly stumbled. Get up. His teammates and allies were vulnerable like this, weak and defenseless. He wouldn't let them get hurt, not when they were this deep into enemy territory. Come on, Robin. She was the closest to him as he tried to help her up. Get up. A flash of fire appeared in front of him, and to his great shock, Blaze and Winter both appeared in the middle of the dissipating flames. Clover. Winter went over to him to help him up while Blaze checked the area for any sign of the enemy. Are you alright? What happened? We were ambushed, badniks and members of Team BRIR, I think. Clover blinked. It's all fuzzy, I don't remember. We'll need to take you back to base and get you and everyone evaluated. Winter said, assuming Clover had some kind of concussion in the fight. For now, we need to leave. The cost is clear. I see nobody. Blaze commented but felt rather odd. If Clover and the rest of them here were beaten and helpless, why leave? Did the enemy suffer just as much damage as they and were forced to retreat? Or was it something else? She shook her head as they would worry about that later. First priority was ensuring everyone's safety. Then let's get out of here. Winter said as she held Clover's arm up over her shoulder and appeared in the middle of the laying and defeated huntsman. Blaze joined them as she once again summoned the flaming green Sol Emerald and spun it around all of them to encompass the group in a large ring of fire. Sol Salvation. Once more, the ring condensed and exploded, engulfing them all in the flames before they vanished, leaving the cargo hold completely empty. Ruby, Weiss, Penny, all sat on a large and snowy cliffside along the side of a mountain at least half a mile away from the base they escaped from. One big enough to hold not only them, but also Silver, Elm, Vine, Seal, May, and Fiona, with even Tails and the Cyclone parked right next to them as they all sat in exhaustion. All except Penny as she and Tails both worked to try and re-establish communications with Atlas. During this time, Ruby got a chance to look around the tundra landscape of Solitas. So, this is Atlas. Not quite how I pictured my first visit to Weiss, home. She looked to her teammate in sympathy as she had just saw her younger brother and mother taken before her eyes. She wanted to reach out and comfort her but stopped herself. No, what can I say? I'll probably just make things worse. She looked in Penny's direction as she and Tails worked near the Cyclone, which had clearly undergone an upgrade since she last saw it. Ordinarily, she'd geek out at such a magnificent-looking vehicle, but she couldn't find the energy to do even that. In fact, it felt like all her internal energy had been completely drained, with only the adrenaline from the escape giving her the boost to keep up with Weiss and Penny back there. But with that all finished, her adrenaline slowly declined, as did her energy. Ruby grimaced as she felt a sharper pain in the back of her neck, something Weiss noticed being the closest to her. Ruby. I'm fine, she tried to dismiss. Just sore from what happened. A pillar of fire erupted in front of them all, getting their attention as Blaze appeared again with Winter, and the rest of their defeated comrades, with Clover being only barely conscious. Clover, Harriet, Marrow, Elm pushed herself up with Vine to approach them. Robin, Joanna, Fiona ran to them as well. They're alive, but unconscious. Winter reported. Have we managed to reach contact with Atlas? She looked to Tails and Penny. I think so, hang on. Tails worked on the Miles Electric. If I could just find the frequency. You were able to contact us though. Blaze pointed out. This is not an issue with our comms being jammed, Penny stated, but rather, Atlas itself. That made the group more than a little nervous. But they heard a high-pitched radio frequency from the Miles Electric. Hang on, I think I got it. Tails said with excitement. Alert, alert, this is a code red. Are there any outline bases or personnel reporting? Please respond. As if they weren't nervous already, it sounded like something really bad was happening in Atlas right now. Winter was the first to respond. This is Specialist Schnee, reporting. What is your situation? Oh, thank the gods. The operator on the other side reported. Specialist Schnee. The entire military base is put on lockdown. We're working to lift it now. Where is the general? Winter questioned. And Professor Polendina. That question caused Penny to look concerned. They're all right. But, our ships, and half of our AK units and paladins. They've been hijacked. Something's completely taken them over. What are you talking about? Winter questioned. I'm guessing he means that. Silver pointed away from the mountains, causing them all to turn to something that made them all gasp in shock and terror. It was a small Atlesian fleet, consisting of at least 2 large flagships and over 100 dropships, each one filled to the brim with Atlesian knights and automated Atlesian paladins. Wah, what? Clover blinked in surprise. How is that possible? Vine questioned. Where are they even going? Just then, a rather loud horn-like noise rang through the air, causing them all to cover their ears as they looked to the summit of the very mountain the hidden base they just escaped from was located in. The entire summit split open, revealing a large hidden doorway as something incredibly massive rose up. It was an enormous ring-shaped device that was big enough for the entire incoming fleet to pass through. In fact, the rogue Atlesian fleet was flying straight towards that very ring. What the hell is that? May questioned as everyone stared at the object with widened eyes. Penny immediately scanned it. It appears to be powered primarily by gravity dust, though there are other sources of power connected to it including, her optics zoomed in at the very top of the ring, where she located a familiar cyan-colored gemstone. There's a Chaos Emerald powering it. What? Ruby, Silver, Weiss, and Winter all exclaimed while everyone else looked in shock. Tails performed many mental calculations in his head to try and find out what this object's purpose was. Gravity dust, a Chaos Emerald, and a fleet of ships heading toward it, he then realized what it was. It's a portal. True to his words, the device began to activate. The cyan Chaos Emerald shined brightly as its power spread to all the gravity dust in the machine. Various points along the ring glowed a dark purple before bolts of power shot out from each spot and conjoined at the very center. The minute those bolts conjoined, a black sphere began to form in the middle of the ring, which quickly expanded to all edges of the ring, effectively creating a 3-dimensional portal resembling a black pulsating sphere as the hijacked fleet moved closer. A portal? How is that possible? Weiss questioned. Is this like chaos control? Not exactly. Gravity warps time and space. Tails explained. It's how we were able to help blend other forms of dust together to create that plasma dust and other hybrid forms. The Chaos Emerald up there is supercharging it. But where are they even going? Silver questioned. Suddenly, a new ship passed by them. It was a dropship that had the appearance of a large blowfish, clearly of Eggman's design. Though the side bay door was opened, revealing Ix, who was still holding Willow and Whitley by their necks. On his right was Cinder, whose own eyes were glowing with orange flames. And on the left was Starline, who held the white Chaos Emerald in his hand. He smirked at them tauntingly before the bay door was closed and the dropship flew closer towards the fleet in the portal, with the smaller dropships already flying into it. Mother! Whitley! Weiss exclaimed in shock as she saw them, with Winter being just as shocked herself. That was Starline, Ruby said. And he had another Chaos Emerald. Cinder was among them too, Penny said as she had scanned her as well, her optics having taken an image of her when she scanned her briefly. She's also undergone significant cybernetic upgrades and, a frame of Cinder's glowing eyes appeared in her visuals. I do believe she has the Winter main power now. So, Freya, Silver muttered, is no longer with us. Blaze looked in mourning briefly, which also included Winter, who clenched her fists tightly. Freya was such a kind woman, she didn't deserve to go out like that. Well, what are we waiting for? We gotta go after them. RWBY proclaimed. RWBY, more than half of this group cannot fight. Penny told her. In your condition? Condition? Tails questioned. I'm fine, Penny. RWBY insisted somewhat aggressively, surprising the android girl as she had never seen her friend like that, especially having it directed to her. Tails, Silver, Blaze, and especially Weiss were surprised by her outburst. Look, Starline, Cinder, and whoever else is working with them are escaping with an entire fleet. I don't know what they're planning, but it can't be good. Plus, we still have to rescue Weiss, family. Your family. She looked to Winter, who looked away at that comment. No, she's right. Silver agreed. We need to go now while they're all still here. We can't stop that fleet from leaving, Silver. Blaze told him. Then we'll just follow after them. Silver insisted. We can fly or use your Sol Salvation to hitch a ride. What about the injured? Tails asked. I'll stay behind and radio for evac. Winter said. With communications restored, I can contact for a shuttle to pick us up. Worst case, and the military can't come, I can call for an SDC freighter. Silver and RWBY are right, we can't afford to let our enemies slip away. Not if they have the Winter Maiden and 2 Chaos Emeralds, or our family. She looked to Weiss, who still had an emotional look on her face. I'll go with them. Penny volunteered. They may need extra firepower. She was also volunteering to keep a close eye on RWBY. Despite what she said, her condition was serious. Only if I go with you. Seal stepped to Penny. I'm not letting you out of my sight again. Winter nodded in understanding. Ironwood may not like that, but now wasn't the time to second guess. Weiss, will you go as well? Of course, I will. She stood up straight as she put on a determined face. Our family needs me. Then Penny, Seal, Weiss, RWBY, Silver, Blaze, and Tails will follow after the fleet. Winter instructed. I'll stay here with the Ace Ops and Happy Huntresses to help them return to Atlas. Worst case scenario, I'll try and radio Sonic for backup. Tails said with a nod. Then get going. Winter ordered. With that, the group moved out. Seal boarded the Cyclone behind Tails before they took to the air along with Silver and Penny, who flew on their own. Weiss and RWBY gathered around Blaze as she pulled out the flaming green Sol Emerald again, which spun a ring of fire around the trio. Sol Salvation. They were encompassed in a pillar of fire before they vanished, leaving Winter and the remaining teams of huntsmen to watch as the hijacked Atlasian fleet had flown into the portal. Already most of the fleet entered the Black Sphere, including one of the flagships while the other was right behind it. As the second one began to enter the orb, the Cyclone flew directly under it with Silver and Penny sticking close behind as they too entered the portal. Once every ship had entered the sphere, it condensed before disappearing completely and the entire ring-shaped device powered down completely. Winter could only sigh as she hoped she was making the right choice. Weiss, Whitley, Mother, Penny, please be safe. Aboard Starline's dropship, the aforementioned platypus had used the warp topaz to open a small portal and retrieve the cyan Chaos Emerald, which he swiftly put in a steel briefcase along with the white emerald before opening another portal to store away both emeralds at an unknown and secure location with a smirk. Also aboard the ship were Team BRIR, Cinder, Watts, and Ix, who stood over Willow and Whitley as he kept his hands on their backs, forcing them to their hands and knees to prevent them from moving. But Whitley recognized the Atlasian scientist right away. Wait, I know you, this got Watts' attention. You're Dr. Watts. The man smiled. Ah, nice to know my face is still remembered after all this time. But, you died. Whitley remembered hearing about the Paladin incident that took the life of one of Atlas' greatest scientists. As you can see, reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. Watts said boastfully. Now as much as I'd love to continue talking, I have work to do. So be a good boy and behave, and no harm will come to you or your mother. He said, prompting Ix to press a bit harder on Whitley and Willow's backs, causing them to quake in fear before the smirking Watts made his way to the front of the ship where Starline and Cinder were. Bianca, standing with the rest of her brainwashed team, looked to the boy and his mother in sympathy before glaring at the plotting scientists and their pet cyborg. Well, have they followed us? Watts asked. Starline used the warp topaz to open a pair of windows, one to show the Cyclone with Penny and Silver flying underneath one of the flagships, while the other showed Ruby, Blaze, and Weiss hiding in a cargo hold aboard that very same ship. They took the bait. Starline smirked as he closed the windows. Why not just grab them with your little gemstone? Cinder asked. Would make it easier for you, right? If I did that, they would likely resist and cause damage during the transit. Starline answered. But offer them bait, and they'll follow us with no hesitation. You do realize the great many risks that will come with having them here, don't you? Watts inquired. Aside from the trouble the Shnees and their allies could cause us, this is also likely to draw the attention of not just Sonic, but Salem as well. And she is not one to tolerate interference. I'm counting on Sonic's interference. Starline smirked. He's been too much of an inspiration on this world, which has only caused problems for the Doctor. But once we're done here, we'll not only throw his progress back significantly but also give Salem a chance of her own to push back. She and Sonic will continue to battle and weaken each other, while we and Dr. Eggman prepare to strike them both down once they're weakened. I'm staking quite a lot with you, Starline. My own life included. Watts said warningly. You better not make me regret this. You won't, Arthur. I promise. He assured. And you, Cinder, will soon have the power you crave for in sweet revenge. He promised her, the Metal Maiden's eyes glowing as the metallic mask appeared over her mouth again. An alert appeared on the monitor of Dropship's dashboard. It seems we've arrived, Watts said. Emerging from the other side of the portal, the hijacked Atlesian fleet now appeared on the other side of Remnant, in the starry night sky with the shattered moon hanging above them. And just below the fleet was the unsuspecting island of Menagerie. And this is the end of part 27 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't really leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.